We just got the 11 a.m. advisory on Tropical Storm Idalia, and we are looking live in Hudson, Florida, one spot that is now under a mandatory evacuation because of Idalia's threat to Florida's Gulf Coast. Let's check out the latest 65-mile-an-hour winds. So it's just shy of hurricane status right now. Pressure at 990, moving toward the north at about 8 miles an hour. It was stationary yesterday. It's now beginning to lift into the Gulf of Mexico. Here's the latest track, still expecting it to make landfall as a major hurricane early Wednesday morning north of the Tampa area. This is the cone showing you where the center of the storm is going to go. Of course, remember that the impacts from any kind of tropical system extend far beyond the center. So this isn't going to show you where the wind and rain is going to be. It's just showing you where that heaviest part of the storm is going. Then it continues, moves right over to the Savannah area, according to this latest track, and then back over the open Atlantic waters as a tropical storm by the time we get to the end of the week. Hurricane warnings are in effect for the western tip of Cuba, but now also a majority of Florida's Gulf Coast from Tampa up towards the Apalachicola area, and tropical storm warnings in effect elsewhere. So let's first start off down to the south. A tropical storm watch is in place for the Key West area. A tropical storm warning from, say, the Fort Myers, Southwest Florida area up to the other side of Tampa there. This is the same spot that was hit by Hurricane Ian last year. Then a hurricane warning picks up in the Tampa metro area and it continues up the coast up toward Tallahassee. Inland, a hurricane watch now includes Valdosta across Georgia's southern tier counties. And now a tropical storm watch in place for the Atlantic side from Brunswick and St. Simons all the way down through Amelia Island, Jack's area beaches through St. Augustine, Daytona into Melbourne and down toward Volusia County there. So we're talking about a wide swath of Florida under some kind of alert, and now Georgia getting into the mix as well with this latest update. Let's check out Future View. We're still looking at roughly the same expectations from what we had this morning. This is 8 p.m. Tuesday. That would be a major hurricane just to the west of Tampa there. You can see Future View's tracking pretty in line with the cone, and that continues as we head into the overnight hours, bringing a major hurricane ashore sometime between 5 and 8 a.m. in that Big Bend region, then crossing roughly right where 75 and 10 intersect, Interstate 75 and 10, and then continuing up toward the Georgia coast and then into the Carolinas. You saw for us in central Georgia, that meant widespread rain through the mid-morning hours and into the early afternoon. The tornado threat would be on the east side of the storm, so that would not be a concern for us. Now, this storm, Idalia, has nothing but warm water to work with in the Gulf of Mexico, which is not good news because this is exactly what tropical systems feed off of to strengthen. 85 to 90 degrees, that is bath water, and that is only going to help the storm, not much standing in its way. So let's check out the different models and the different ensembles that go along with them. An ensemble is basically the same model, but you just change something small to see the different variations in what could happen. The European model tracking pretty similar to the center track of the cone from the National Hurricane Center. You can just see that faintly drawn in right there. So by 8 a.m. Wednesday, bringing it ashore and then continues it down along the Georgia coast before re-emerging it over the Savannah area. But again, you change one small thing and it pulls it closer to us here in central Georgia, or it pulls it down closer to the Jacksonville area. Let's check out the same thing, but on the GFS here, you're going to notice it's actually tracking to the west of the cone here. We're trying to bring it ashore closer to Apalachicola than Tampa. And then this latest run actually brings it right over Telfair, Wheeler, Montgomery counties as we work our way through the day on Wednesday. But again, we have that variation there in terms of changing every little thing on the ensemble. So if that track were to happen, the heaviest rainfall would happen over our area. We would be talking about 3 to 5 to 7 inches of rain across parts of central Georgia. Don't pay attention to the exact amounts here. Just notice that swath follows the center of the storm. But if the European model were a little more accurate, that swath would be down closer to the coast, and we would be looking at not as much rainfall here in central Georgia. Regardless, I think that's probably going to be our primary threat, rainfall rather than wind. We will see some tropical storm force winds, I'm thinking, but the rainfall is really going to add up across central Georgia. So what it all boils down to in terms of forecasting Idalia and where it goes is its interaction with this front here. So we've got a front draped across the southeast, and basically we've got to figure out how that front and this storm are going to interact. If we have a faster moving cold front, that's actually going to keep the storm a bit further south, say push it in toward the Tampa area. But if we have a faster hurricane and maybe a slower front, then that would pull it further north, a lot like what the GFS was just showing. and then pull it inland and eventually toward us here in central Georgia. The timeline on this, looking at a Wednesday event, the rain beginning Wednesday morning, the heaviest of the rain beginning in the mid-morning, lasting through the early afternoon. There's somewhat of a similar timeline for the winds here, but as I mentioned a few moments ago, the tornado threat, I'm not too concerned about it because that's going to be on the east side of Idalia, and we are going to be on the west side as long as all goes according to plan. So what you need to know is that a landfall is expected as a major hurricane in Florida's Big Bend area on Wednesday. Storm surge will happen along the Gulf Coast from the Tampa area up through that Big Bend region, and then again on the Atlantic coastline. Wind and rain will begin in central Georgia here Wednesday morning.